anyone thought about preparing our cities, preparing our infrastructure, preparing
Hmm.
our systems for this massive, quite literally unprecedented influx of newcomers? And it's not just immigrants; it's temporary foreign workers, it's
Yeah.
international students, it's refugees, it's asylum claimants, and so they're all under this like catch-all of immigration, but they're
Hmm.
not all legitimate immigrants. And
Hmm.
so we have to start differentiating, I think, between those things. But
For sure.
finally, Premier Ford is saying, you know what, this is a little bit out of control and it's time to slow it down. Listen to this.
But what do you expect when you bring in over 2 million people? And I'm
Oof.
all pro immigration, but
Mm,
in saying that, we got to slow down now because the foundation of our healthcare system, our education, our infrastructure, everything we do is one thing. That's our economy. And we just need to make sure that we can keep up. We're building the schools, building the hospitals, we're building infrastructure, but we're the fastest growing region in North America. So let's just get caught up, get our housing, and then we can bring more people in.
yeah, see, that should have happened 10 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago, right? That should be done before you open the floodgates. Now it's like, okay, how do we manage all of this? Now like the mess is here. Now we have to try to mitigate, when it should have been, okay, this is our plan. This is where we're headed. How do we ensure that we have everything in place to successfully integrate this staggering number of people coming into the country? I mean, again, I would say it's a little too late, but better late than never when it comes to Premier Doug Ford, because also in his province, Ontario receives the vast majority of immigrants that come into this country. Again, that
Yeah.
includes all those other subsects. But not only Ontario, because Ontario is such a vast, massive province, but specifically the Greater Toronto Area, the GTA, and the 401 corridor is where
Sorry.
more than half of the immigrants total for the entire country come into this small little corridor of the GTA. And it is staggering. The demographics have changed dramatically in the last few years. And I would argue, even especially like the last year or two, it is shocking. And we're seeing it play out in the streets, on our roads. We have this article from the Globe and Mail published yesterday, and this actually, I think this went viral, or was first reported on, I should say, a couple months ago or a month or two ago. But this is an Ontario teen. I believe he was 16. Yeah, he was
Ugh,
16. His name
yeah.
is Finley
Hmm.
Vander Verken. He died while waiting to be
Oh, that's
seen at an
sad.
emergency room in
Yeah.
Ontario, waiting in agony. And this mother was advocating, like, she was like, my son is in severe pain and we need to be seen.
Hmm.
He was an active 16-year-old who loved playing hockey.
Yeah.
He was
Very fit.
experiencing intense pain on his right side. He was 6'2", grade 11 student, and he was like crying well on the way to the hospital and then once there. And he could have been saved had he have received the rapid medical intervention that he needed. But instead of being seen right away, as he should have been, he waited more than 8 hours in an emergency room. And I think he was even in the hallway. Um, his mom said he could be heard making noises in a hallway
It is
while his
so.
condition deteriorated. And she alerted nurses several times to his decline. And then finally, he was diagnosed with pneumonia, sepsis, hypoxia, and then he suffered a cardiac arrest,
Oh,
a heart
poor kid.
attack that
Yeah.
afternoon. He was transferred to Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children at 1:35 a.m. And then at 1:35 a.m. he was taken off of life support. Like, this is absolutely devastating. A healthy, robust, tall, grade 11, had his whole life ahead of him, grade 11 student, 16 years old, died because he couldn't receive medical care at a hospital
In Canada.
in Canada within
And
8 hours.
It's so disgusting. I mean, we have stories like that as well. And yes, Ontario's getting the brunt of the immigration. And yes, you're absolutely correct to say that we shouldn't be giving that umbrella term to everything. And even immigrants who go through the correct process and check all of the boxes and come here don't want us doing that because, they're doing everything right and not getting a free pass. But we are seeing that there's also a large amount. It was a disproportionate amount that the federal government says are coming to British Columbia. So it's definitely, some would say, too little, too late for Doug, but at least Doug Ford is saying something, whereas you have David Eby and it's like, okay, yeah, we're just all ready for it. But the other thing about what Ford said there is that, he's starting to sound a little bit like Polyev that he's been critical of, or some would even say, I don't think he sounds like Trump, but some would say he's sounding like Trump on this. And it's like, I'm sorry, you've been reelected. Where have you been on this issue? You're just waking up to it now. And Ontario is seeing a lot of areas that don't look like Canada anymore. And we're
No.
seeing that in Europe happening too, where people like, is this Europe or is this Africa? Like, it's just, there's so much changing happening so fast. And I don't know, this tiptoeing around the tulips when it comes to addressing an actual problem that we elect you to address. It just has to stop. And the people have to just say enough is enough. We have to have some actual action here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think Ontario is also the hotbed for these fraudulent school mills and the college diploma scams.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that's happening through the International Students Program, which data shows the vast majority of the people utilizing that program come from India. And there are various videos online and circulating on social media where people are literally going to, summer hotspots, in the Muskokas, for instance, or, even Ottawa, or these other places that are used to be summer vacay spots for Canadians, even Centre Island in Toronto. And they're just filming, walking through the crowd, and they're like, there is literally not a Canadian in sight here. What is going on? So you see that more and more. And also Ontario, that's where I say it's not just like it's all under the umbrella of immigration, but there's a lot of these subsects that are exploiting these systems and scamming and gaming the system to gain access. And I think Ontario is a hotbed for that, specifically for the temporary foreign worker program, for the international student program, and for the refugee program. And we have here from the Toronto Star, where Mayor Olivia Chow of Toronto is warning that the city of Toronto will be $107 million short this year.
Of course.
If the federal government doesn't beef up their budget to Toronto to shelter refugees.
Wow.
Instead of calling for like, hey,
yeah,
let's
slow
rein
down.
it in, like Ford's doing, he's saying, what, maybe it is time to slow down, because I mean, Ontario's faced with a lawsuit right now about not being able to provide shelter to refugees. Yeah. And so maybe it's Toronto, actually. I might be wrong. I think it's the city of Toronto that is being hit with this lawsuit for not being able to shelter refugees. And yet they're just still opening the floodgates. It's like, why are you can't just keep asking for more and more money when you quite literally do not have the infrastructure to handle this capacity. There's no way to build it within a month or like 7 months ago. So you need to stop the influx, because otherwise it's not fair to Torontonians, and it's not fair to the immigrants who come here the proper way, who didn't queue jump, who didn't scam or game the system. And what a slap in the face to all of them who jumped through the hoops.
Or the ones that are still waiting. You know, they've been doing everything right and they're still waiting to come here. And we're losing track of them. There was that report that came out not too long that showed we don't even know where some of them are. So that's a safety risk for us, a big safety risk, to the point that India has branded the Prime Minister, and that country has branded us a safe haven for terrorists, because they're saying we're actually letting people in that are criminals over there, and we're letting them in here. And it's just like, hey, come on, it's a free for all. So, unfortunately, this is already catching up with us. And yeah, people like Mayor Olivia Chow are not helping with that.
Yeah, and she says here, the first few sentences of this report say, Mayor Olivia Chow says Prime Minister Mark Carney's government is set to walk away from its duty to house refugee claimants, warning that a new federal funding formula would leave Toronto more than 100 million short on shelter costs for asylum seekers this year. The third paragraph here, she says, as you know, providing safe shelter for refugee claimants is a federal responsibility, and the city and province cannot shelter the cost. Yeah, absolutely. But the feds are cutting back on, well, they've pledged to. The data paints a different picture, but everyone is starting to say, you know what, this is really bad, and we need to start reining it in ASAP. And I think they're just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, because we've reached this crucial breaking point, and no one's really sure what to do. How do we get out of this mess and untangle it? I mean, you have to you have to put stipulations and checks and balances back in place immediately, and we have to start deporting the people that should not be here, who are illegally here, and we have to stop approving those who are flagged as being ineligible to come in the first place. This is absolutely crazy, and it's too bad, because I think we should have really started talking about this a few years ago. Like we're everyone is too little too late on this file, but the conversations are happening now. It's just that action needs to start taking place.
Even the boomers, the same boomers that, you know, predominantly voted for Mark Carney, now they're talking about it too. There was that recent study that came out. Actually, David and I talked about it last week, but they're saying, yeah, it's a little bit out of control now too. So it's like,
Yeah,
well,
and
you think, where were you during the election with that one?